All right, so today's plan is to rig this vehicle right here. This is a very pretty simple rig, nothing crazy. It's going to have wheels that rotate automatically, and will also give it the ability to follow a path like I have here, so you don't have to keyframe all the turns and whatnot. You can just have it on a curve and have it go where you want. The wheels again will rotate automatically. So if I play this back, you can see what we got here. Steering wheel is rigged. All that wheel rotation is happening automatically. That's not keyframed. Um, and you see that it's following the curve that I've set there. And then you'll see that it will, as we slow down here, you'll see that those wheels are actually turning correctly. We have a little suspension bounce at the beginning there. So that is what we're going to set up here today. The car, of course, is there's a link in the description below that if you want to download that, you can get it there. Um, and that's what we're going to do. So let me go find the file that I want here to start from the beginning. All right. So here's our car right here. Okay, very simple, very light. It's only about 51,000 faces total, so it's a pretty light model here, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to have the doors able to open as well. We're going to rig the steering wheel to rotate. As you turn the wheels, the steering wheel will rotate correctly, um, and do all the suspension and stuff. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with actually is our suspension. I'm going to use a series of joints. As usual, I like to rig everything with joints because I like the ability to then cache out animation and remove the rig from the scene and just have the animation be coming off a cache file instead of the joints. Lightens everything up really nicely. So I like to do that just like I will with my characters. Everything is skinned. Well, I'm going to do the same thing here for the car. All right, so I'm going to go in the side view here, and let's get out of here. I'm going to go into my rigging menu set, and what we want is a skeleton. We want create joints. We can just reset the tool if it's not a default. Mine is. Okay, so I'm going to just make a single joint. I'm going to snap it to, I don't even have to snap it, just make a joint and hit enter. Okay, and if you want to mess with the joint size here, simply go to display, and where is it? Animation, joint size, and you can increase or decrease the size of the joints. That's just a visual thing. It doesn't really do anything. So I need this joint to be perfectly centered to this wheel. Now, not centered here, but centered on the axis. For right now, we're going to keep them on the grid plane. So if I hold down X, I can snap it upward on the y-axis so that it's on our floor grid. And then if I hold down V and drag it on the z-axis and move my mouse over here, I can now snap it to that center line of our front wheel here. Control D, duplicate it. I'll do the same with the back. Hold down V, move, constrain movement to the z-axis, and just snap it to there so that it's lined up there. And then duplicate it again, and this one is going to be about halfway between the two, more or less. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so just somewhere between the two, more or less halfway, should be good. All right, so let's name these joint. This one is the front suspension joint, so front susp joint. Okay, I'll just shorten that so it's not so long. This is our main body joint. And let's see, what did I? You know what, let's shorten the joint to J and T because we don't need it to be that long. And then this is the rear susp joint. There we go. Okay, so those are the three joints that we have here: front, rear, and main body. Okay, and then the way that we need them to be parented is main body is going to be the top joint. That's our root joint. Okay, then the front suspension joint, I'm going to middle mouse drag that into main body joint, so that's next, and then rear suspension, middle mouse drag that in there. So we have main body, front suspension, and rear suspension, okay, in that order. So that's the hierarchy that we're trying to get here. Very important that we get that right. It's going to select the main body, freeze transformations on it, just to make sure that everything's zeroed out that can be. Obviously, the translates won't be zeroed out because they're joints, and the translate represents the offset from the parent joint, which for the main body joint, since it has no parent, its parent is the world, and the world is centered at the origin. So that's that 0.274 in my case here is the distance from the origin. Then we have the front suspension joint. It's got a 3.455 value in there. And that's the distance from the main body joint. And then the rear suspension joint is minus 6.323, which is the offset from the front suspension joint. So freezing transformation is not going to remove those numbers, but any rotations and scales will get reset. Okay, so now that we have that joint chain set the way we want, we need to now take the whole thing and just move it up in line with the center of the wheels. So I'm going to get my move tool here. I'm selecting main body joint because it's the parent. Hold down V. I'm going to constrain to the Y-axis, and as I move up in the Y, I'm going to move my mouse over to this point here because I'm telling Maya to snap to that point. And because I've constrained movement to the Y-axis, the whole thing doesn't shift over here, but it does align it with that. So I'm going to come up here to shading and turn on X-ray joints so that we can actually see the joints through the mesh. Okay, you can see now that this joint is perfectly centered to that wheel, and this one is perfectly centered there. So this is very important because everything pivots around where those wheels are rotating from. So it's very important that you get that looking correct. Okay, so that's what we got. Now in the hierarchy here for my car, I've sort of set everything up here in groups just to make it easier to see where everything is. So what I'm going to do here is open up the main body group, and we have exterior and interior, and then we have the doors. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the exterior and interior. Then I'm going to skin those to the rear suspension joint. So select both these groups here and the rear suspension joint, and then go to skin. I'm going to go to bind skin. I'm going to reset my settings, switch this to selected joints, and what I'm going to do, since I only have one selected joint, it's going to skin everything 100% to that rear suspension joint, and hit bind skin. It'll do what it's got to do there. So now if I rotate my rear suspension joint, you see that the car, all the inside stuff, the seats, steering wheel, everything, plus the exterior minus the doors, is now moving with that rear suspension joint. Okay, so that's what we want. Just very simple skinning. I'm not using any of the fancy skinning, just the default skinning, but we want to make sure we have selected joint set. And you could also, on the max influences, sometimes I'll set this to 1, but when there's only one joint in play, this really doesn't matter because everything's going to be skinned to that one joint. Okay, so rear suspension joint, as you can see, sort of pivots the car from that back wheel, so you can see this is how we're going to get that suspension bounce for the front. And then if we do the same thing from the front suspension joint and rotate this way, this is how we're going to get that rear suspension bounce. Okay, so that's basically what we're trying to do here. Just by skinning that, we've basically achieved that. And then if we move main body joint, that's just, you can just pick up the whole car and take it wherever you want. Okay, so if we want to have the car just bounce as a whole on its suspension, we can do that with the main body joint. Okay, so pretty straightforward there, nothing crazy. Okay, now we need controls. Obviously, we need some controls that we can move the car around with. So let's go ahead and let's go to curved surfaces. I'm going to get the EP curve tool, and I'm just going to use some arrows. So I'm going to come up here in the grid where we have some room here. I'm going to hold down X, and let's just click, and basically I'm going to draw an arrow, say like this. It's a double-sided arrow. Okay, so something like that, and then hit enter when you get it all done there. So Then I'm going to go to modify and center the pivot. So my pivot's right there. I want to move this here. This is way too big, so I'm going to scale this down. And this is going to be the control I use for the front suspension. Okay, I'm just going to move it here for right now. Let's get it to a decent size here. I don't want it to be too big. Let's duplicate that, Control D, and move this one to the back here. Okay. This one is our, we'll call this front suspension control. And this is our rear suspension control. Okay, so plan is when we grab this one and move it up and down, it's going to move the car, rotate the car up and down in the back, and do the same here for the front suspension. Okay, so pretty straightforward there. Then the other thing I want to do is make one for the main body that will also control the roll of the car side to side. So for this one, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to, well, I guess we can make another one of those. Joe, this one's going to be a different size, so I'll just get the EP curve tool here and just do it again real fast. So again, hold down X, do the same thing. I should have just duplicated it, but it's fine. We can just do it again real fast. It doesn't take long at all. So let's do that. Okay, so we have that control there. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to modify center of the pivot, and I'm going to rotate it. While holding down J, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees this way so it's nice and flat. Okay, so then, so I know it's right here. I'm back in my side view here. I'm going to take my EP curve tool again, and I'm going to hold down X, and I'm going to snap like this. And again, this time I'm going to make half of an arrow, and then hit enter. Okay, so this is what we got going on here. We got the arrow laying flat and then this one going up and down. So this is just trying to make a very descriptive control here. So we're going to be able to move side to side, but we'll also be able to move up and down. Now I could have put a bottom arrow here, but it starts to be a little too busy. But if by all means, if you want to, you could do that. So this is what I'm going to do here. Now, the problem is right now these are separate. So I need for these to be one control. So when I click on one, it selects the entire thing, not two separate pieces. And I could simply group it, but again, even though it's grouped, if I click one, I'd have to press the up arrow to be able to get them both, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to undo that grouping. So what I got to do is just parent the shape nodes. So right click in the outliner, go to shapes, and then open up so you can see the shape nodes. Now I need the shape node of the second one and the transform node of the first one. Like the shape node is there, that node right there with the shape, the word shape on it, and then the upper node is the transform node. So I need the shape node of this one, and then I can control click the transform node of that one. Then I can come down here in my little mel bar here, and if it says Python, just click on it till it says mel, and we're going to write parent dash R space dash S. So parent space dash R space dash S, and hit enter. Now, if you get this, that didn't work right, so I'm going to undo it, and that's because I have values in my rotate here. We need to make sure that these are both frozen, so I'm going to select the transform nodes, make sure it's the transform nodes, and just go to modify freeze transformations. It's going to zero those out. Now we can try it again. Click on the shape node here and the transform node here. And because I already did this command once, if I hit the up arrow, it's going to show me my last command. Or you can just type it again, parent space dash R space dash S, then hit enter. Now you can see both shape nodes are children of this transform node here. So if I click on it now, you can see that they get selected. So this old transform node here needs to go away. Don't really need it. Okay, and I'm going to right click on here and turn off shapes. So now we have curve 1 here, which we're going to rename to main body control. Main body control. Okay, so that one is going to be the control right in the center here of the car, and maybe it's a little big here, so let me scale it down a little bit. Okay, so something like that. So this control, again, we're going to be able to roll the car side to side this way, and also move it up and down this way. So that control is pretty descriptive there. on what you want to do. Okay, so those are the controls that we want there. Okay, so let's so what I'm going to do, this is not necessarily important, but what I'm going to do here is just, I'm going to center this control to the center of this wheel just for consistency here. So get your, hold down V, grab the blue axis here, the Z axis. I'm going to constrain movement there and then move my mouse to this point so that I know it's now lined up. Let's do the same in the back. Hold down V, move this to that point, and now I know it's lined up. And for, you know what, for the back, actually, I might not do that just because it's too far forward. Just visually doesn't look very good. So I might actually just move this one here. Again, it's not important that you do this, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to select all three of these controls and just do a freeze transformations here just to clean everything up. Always make sure that your controls are zeroed out before you start connecting them to stuff. So that's we're good. So these are now the default positions of these controls. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start connecting these. Let's start with the front one. I'm going to go to Windows, Node Editor. Okay, so this is our node editor right here. And it automatically loaded up our front suspension control because that was the one that was selected. If it's not in there, just select it and then hit the little plus here to add that selected node to the graph. Now my graph comes in without all the shape nodes, and that's because I did in my preferences here. If we open up this little orange guy in the corner, preferences, you go to node editor. Here are my settings here. So I tell it to not bring in the shapes. So if you get 3 different nodes, or whatever, more than one node, that's because the shape nodes are loaded. So I tell it to do no shapes, and then I tell it to do my default node view to full mode so that it shows me the node in its expanded form. Otherwise it comes in like this along with the shape node. So you can select the shape node if you have one in there and then hit this minus. It'll remove it from the graph, but it won't delete it. And then to expand this, you can just hit 3 and it will expand. You can also set this here. So no shapes, right? So you can just have it set to no shapes. But this just, it just maintains that setting for the current session. And then when you reopen Maya later, it'll be back to the default. So if you want it to always default to this, you want to make sure you set the no shapes in here and tell it to go to full mode. And then it'll always do that. So you can save that now. Now it's not going to automatically update. You'd have to restart Maya for it to be in effect. Okay, so we're going to load that guy up in there. And what I'm going to do is grab my rear suspension joint, which is this guy here, and I'm going to hit the plus to load that in here. So there's the rear suspension joint. Okay, so what I need to do is connect my translation. So as I translate up and down in Y, I want the rear suspension joint to rotate. So as I pull this up, I want this joint to rotate up. And as I pull my control downwards, I want this control to rotate downwards. Okay, it has to rotate because that's how this is supposed to work. So what I can simply do, if I open up translate and then open up rotate, so let's figure out which rotation axis. So that is the x-axis that I'm rotating on, and I'm translating on the y here for the control. So translate y goes to rotate x, right? You get a unit conversion node just because these are rotation values, degrees, and these are just translate values in centimeters. So there has to be some kind of unit conversion going on there. This is not important, so I can usually just grab these and hit 1. So let's see what happens. If I grab this and move it up and down, you see that something's happening, but it's actually happening the opposite of what I need it to be. So as I'm going up, the car is going down, and as I'm going down, the car is going up. Obviously, that is backward. Okay, so I'm going to zero my control back out here, and I'm going to grab this unit conversion and delete it, which is going to break that connection, and now that does nothing. So I need to invert the values. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to use a multiply divide node. So if I, in my node editor, if I hit tab and then start typing in multiply, Eventually you get multiply divide when you see it pop up. Hit enter. Okay, so let's open input 1 and let's open up output so we can see all the values. So what I'm going to do is plug my translate y of the control into input 1. Okay, and if I double click input 1, it's going to bring up the attribute editor. So input 1 is yellow because it's plugged into the translate y of the uh, front suspension control. So what I need to then do here is invert this value, right? So if I put a -1 in here, okay, and then take the output, so output x, because this came to input at 1x, so I need to output x, go to rotate, what did I say it was, x. So we're going to rotate an x, and of course we have a unit conversion that gets created again here. Okay, so that's what we have right now. Let's look at what that does. So now as I go up, you see that the car goes up. As I go down, the car goes down. Okay, so that's working. The only problem is I have to move quite a ways to get something. So this control eventually disappears into the car, and if I leave it there and then need to get it back, I can't get to it. So we're going to come back to my multiply divide now. So instead of -1, I'm going to put a -2. So it's going to double the action of that control. So if I go here now, you can see I don't have to go very far to move that car up and down. Okay, so you can just basically increase it by a factor of 1 here. So it's actually moving twice as far. The rotation is twice as far as the translation. Okay, so there we go. Because this car, honestly, you're never going to go that far. You're probably going to go about this far downward, and you're probably going to go, obviously if you go this far, it's going to break the rig. So you don't need that much. So this is pretty good. If I set this to 3, that to -3, this might actually be too much now. So you'll see that it's oversensitive now. So it's up to you. If you'd rather you have it like that, that's fine. I'm going to set it to -2, and that should give me just the right amount, because again, the suspension doesn't really do that much. So this sort of in this range here is pretty nice. Okay, so let's go back to channel box here and just zero out the control. So we're back to the default setting. Okay, so that's what we have right there. That works the way that we want. And for that front suspension control, all it's ever going to do is move up and down. There's not going to be any forward or backward movement side to side. So all we need is translate Y. So what I'm going to do is just lock and hide all these attributes. So we just have the translate Y. Now that's all this control can do. And then if you want to limit just how far, because obviously I can still just drag this way up here, and there's really no need for that. So I can limit how far I need this to be able to go. So I'm going to go in the attribute editor with this control selected. Go in the transform node of that control. And we're going to go down to limit information. And by default, it opens up to rotate. We're not rotating this, we're translating it. So we can close the rotate and then open up the translate. And we're limiting the translation in Y, so translimit Y. Going to activate this and this, so the minimum and maximum. And then I'm going to tell it that I want it to, let's try -2 to about 1.25 or so. Let's see what that does. So basically I can go up to a value of 1.25 in the positive, which is honestly a little too much, but that's fine. And then I can go to a maximum of, you'll see that it won't go any further than -2, and that's extreme. You want to give the animator extremes. They may never take it up that far, but it's better to give them a little too much than not give them enough. So that seems like a good amount of values here. So this does not need to be able to go any higher than that, and does not need to be able to go any lower than that. And you can see that at its lowest point, I can still get to this control. It doesn't sink into the car like it was before. Okay, so we can zero this out back to its default position now that we've put the limits on there. And that pretty much takes care of that control. So we need to do the same thing for the rear control. Okay, so same sort of thing here. We can do it in the same thing here. So got my rear suspension control selected. I'm going to hit the plus to add it. Oh, another thing before we go forward, let's go ahead and select all these nodes here and hit P. And you can see that brings in this little thumbtack here. It just pins the nodes so that way uh, the node editor is not going to reshuffle your nodes, because it will do that sometimes. You'll have all these laid out connections and then it'll reshuffle it for whatever reason and mess you up. So the shortcut of that is just select all the nodes and hit P. And if you want to turn that off, you can hit P again. That just toggles on and off. The other thing that you can do is just tell it to pin all nodes by default. Okay, so it should now, any node that you bring in here should get pinned automatically. So this one here, let's hit P just to make sure it's also pinned. Okay, so here we're going to do the same thing, but instead of the rear suspension joint, we need the front suspension joint. So select front suspension joint, and let's hit that plus. Okay, now, and drag this here. Now these two are connected because they are parented to each other, so don't worry about that connection. That you don't need to mess with that. Okay, so again, we need to connect this. So again, it's a translate Y on this control and a rotate X on the front suspension control. Okay, so we can go ahead and open the translate, open translate there and rotate here. And if we take our translate Y, plug it into rotate X, and we get our conversion node here. So let's see what we get. So this one works without that inverting of the values here. Okay, but the problem is, again, this thing has got way too much range here. So we want to, set we want to double the action of the control by putting in a multiply divide node just like we did before. So we can go ahead and delete our conversion node here. Again, hit tab and start to type in multiply until you get multiply divide, and open up input 1, take your translate Y into input 1x. This time I'm just going to put a 2 in here, not a -2 but a 2. We don't need to invert the value, so we'll use just 2. Output X goes to rotate X. We get our conversion node, and again select that, hit 1 just to collapse it. Doesn't need to be more than that. So let's see what we got now. If we take this, see, we don't have to move it quite as far to get this to work. So there we go. That works pretty well. And we might as well name some of these multiply divide nodes just as out of habit here. So we're going to call this rear suspension mult. I like to put caps on the type of node that it is, so it's a multiply divide node, so I have a mult on there just so that I can look at it without, if I don't see the actual node. And this is the front suspension mult. Okay, so that's a good habit to name stuff. Then now that that's set up, we can come in our channel box right here, and then again we want to lock everything, lock and hide everything except translate Y. So now that works. So you can see that we have both front and rear suspension. Okay, so those now work. I have them both zeroed out again. Make sure you save your work regularly, so you're not losing anything by mistake there. Okay, and then of course if you want to put limits on the rear control, you could do the same thing. And because I had opened it before, now it's set to the value, to the translate limit here. So again, I'm gonna turn these both on, and this one I go about negative 1.75 to about 1.25. So, and you can feel free to play with these values. These are just the ones that work for me. So there's your negative 1.75, and there's your 1.25. So that's pretty good range, but feel free to set it to whatever works for you. So we can zero this guy out, and there we go. Okay, so pretty easy. I'm going to save again. I like to save on a regular basis. Let's go and now do the main body control. Okay, this one is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to point constrain the main body joint, which is this guy right here. We're going to point constrain it to the main body control, but we're only going to do it on the y-axis. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our constraint and go in the options for point. I'm going to turn on maintain offset because the pivot point of this guy is up here and the pivot point of the main body control is way over here. So we don't want this main body control to snap over here. We want them to maintain their distance from each other. Okay, and then I'm going to activate constraint axis to be Y. Okay, so if I need to select the control first, and then I'm going to control click the main body joint, or select the control. If you're going to do it in the viewport, then shift click the main body joint here, and let's hit apply. So if we move this on the Y, you can see that it moves the entire car up and down, but if we move in the Z, nothing happens, and if we move in the X, nothing happens. Okay, so it's only constrained in the Y. Okay, so that's very important. The X translation of the control is going to control the Z rotation of the car. So we're going to be able to roll the car like this by translating that control left and right on the X axis. Okay, we want to be able to just roll the car. So that's what we're going to do there. So let's set that up here. So node editor again. We can now this constraint got put into my graph here, so I can just select it and hit minus right here, so that it comes out of there. If you don't want things to get automatically added to your graph, you can always lock it. But anytime you do that, things like conversion nodes won't be added automatically, so it might not look like you made a connection even though you did. So I would leave that unlocked until you're done with a window, then you can lock it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this right in the same window here. So select my main body control and load it up here. And so it comes in at sort of the default position. That's fine. And there we go. So there's our main body control here. And let's load up the main body joint. So select that and hit plus. And again, it gets loaded over here. And again, it's connected to the other joints because they're all in the same hierarchy. Okay. And again, so if we took our translate X value and plugged it into our rotate Z value, so translate X to rotate Z, and let's see what we get. Obviously we get our little conversion node here. You know what I'm going to do is just take my nodes and move them up so that that default position where the nodes come in is a little closer to where I want to be here. So let's grab this and let's see what that looks like. So you'll see that it's going the opposite direction from what we want. Okay, so again, we just have to invert that value with a multiply divide node. So get rid of that unit conversion tab, multiply, divide. Okay, so let's open input 1 and output. And let's get our translate X value, plug it into input 1X, output X value, plug it into rotate Z. There's our conversion node, collapse that. Come up in here. We're going to rename this to, what do we want to call it here? Main body. Mult. Or something to that effect. Or body roll mult. Whatever you want. I mean, the name's not really important. Just something that you can refer back to. And we're going to double click this node right here, and then the input 2 we're going to put in -2. That's just going to invert that value, and then again to double the action of that control, so we don't have to pull it as far. Instead of doing a -1, I'm going to do a -2. Okay, so let's see what that looks like now. If we grab this, it moves the correct direction, and this is what we want. This car is never going to roll like this much, so you never really have to go that far. You're just going to do a little bit of this, right? Because it's not really supposed to go too far with it. So that's good there. Can now zero out that value. There we go. So essentially, that's what we got. And if you want to put the limits on the X value here, so translate limit X. Let's see how far we want it to go. So if say you want to max out your body roll at a value, so let's round this up to about 5. Okay, so I'm going to activate our max. I'm going to put a 5 in here, or put a 5 in here actually. And now I can go all the way to 5 and it'll stop. And since this is symmetrical, I go to -5 on this side. So we can do limits that way. Now again, that's way more than you'd probably ever do, but it's always better to give the animator more than they need rather than less. So okay, so there we go. We have our limits set on that, so that control is now set. We need to lock and hide our channels here again. So we have translate X that we can use this for, and translate Y to pick the whole thing up. We have no translate Z and no rotates. So X and Y, Z, and everything else we can lock and hide selected. Okay, so now it won't do anything in Z. It'll do the side to side in X. It'll do the up and down in Y, and that's it. Okay, save your work. Okay, next thing we got to tackle now is our doors. Okay, now to do that again, I use joints. Some people will just animate, have the doors themselves have their pivot point where the hinge would be and do it like that. But because my doors have multiple parts, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I have everything be skinned to a joint. That's just going to make my life easier. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just on the floor here, so I can actually close this. Oh, you know what? Before I close that, we're in Windows Node Editor. Because now I have this all set, what I could do is name this tab. We're going to call this, I don't know, suspension. Whatever you want. I want to lock this now. So now no nodes can get put in there unless I intentionally make that happen. Then I'm just going to make a new empty node so that if Maya needs to throw some nodes anyway, I can put them in here and I'm not going to worry too much about it. Now I can close this guy. So let's go ahead and make a skeleton. Go to skeleton, create joints. And I'm just going to hold X to snap to the grid. I'm going to click once and click again. It doesn't really matter, how far apart they are. We're going to scale this down as needed. So what I need to do here is move this up to where I think my door would be hinging from, where that hinge would be. So, and this is one of those trial and error deals here. So you could try different settings here, but something like this is probably, maybe move it down a little bit lower, something like that, maybe about here. Okay, so the door is going to pivot from this point. So, you'll have to experiment to see what works. And this joint chain is obviously too big here, so I'm just going to scale this down, something like that. And I'm going to freeze transformations, so modify freeze transformations just to get rid of that. And if my joints are too big, I could either do that global joint size, or I can just select both of these joints and scrub my radius value, so maybe 0.3, somewhere around there should be good. This is all visual. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to do that. So this is where my door will then hinge from. Okay, so we're going to name this L underscore for left front hinge, J and T for joint. And then I'm going to go down to this joint here. I'm going to call this left front end J and T. So that's just the end joint for this door. End joints don't really do much except give you something for a visual. Okay, so that is my front hinge joints. Control D to duplicate them. Move it to the rear of the car, and figure out where that would hinge from. So let's say something like this, more or less. Okay, and again, I'm just going to scale this so I can see better. Scale this down, modify, freeze transformations. So this is the left rear hinge joint, and this is the left rear end joint. Okay, so there we go. So that's the front and that's the rear. So again, the rear door was going to open this way. So I'm going to select this, keep that joint selected, go to skeleton, and open up the mirror joints options. We want to mirror across the YZ plane. So if you look at our little gizmo here, the YZ plane will split the car in half. So that's the right one. We're going to search for L underscore. L underscore replace with R underscore. And I'm going to set my mirror function to behavior. Just mirror this across. And then select the front one. And just hit G. And it's going to repeat the last command. So you can see now we have the same joints on this side as well. Okay, and it should have renamed them, and it did. All right, so what we want is if I select all four of these joints here, what we want if we rotate them is for them to be opposite to each other, right? Which is why I chose behavior as the mirror function here. So if I go back here under mirror joints, I had behavior and I have orientation. If I chose an orientation, let's go ahead and I'll show you what that would look like. So let's delete these again and let's select this one, and this time we'll set it to orientation, apply, and select this one and apply that. Okay, so we have joints there, but if I select all four of them and rotate, you see how they, let's head over why this is what they do. So we don't want that. We want to be able to plug the same value into all four joints and have the doors open, not go into the car like what would be these doors would be going into the car. Obviously that's incorrect. So you want to make sure that is set to behavior. I'm just going to undo back to when I had them, so that now when I have them, so if I plug in the same value, it opens the doors and closes them. Okay, so that's why I set that to behavior. Okay, so there we go. That's what we got there. And we need to parent all of these. So I'm going to select all four of these joints, and I'm going to parent them under the rear suspension joint. Okay, and the reason I put them under the rear and none of these is so that no matter how the car moves, that rear suspension joint is going to move with it, and we want those hinge joints for the doors to go with the rear suspension joint, because if I move the front suspension joint, it's going to take everything below it with it. And if I move the rear suspension joint, I want those doors to also go. So you want to make sure that they're under the rear suspension joint. So in my perspective here, I don't think I did it before. I got to come to shading. Let's turn on X-ray joints so we can see what's going on. So this is what we have here. So if I select main body, this is the little skeleton setup we have going on in here. Okay, so that's what we have here. So my doors are in the geometry is all set up here. Okay, so all I need to do is select a group. Now, for some reason, and I totally forgot to fix this here. Hopefully, I hope I remember to do this in the file that you get. You see how this is on this side. So I'm just going to open this up and let's find, where is it here? There it is. I just need to set this to a value of -1, and that should go that side, and then I can freeze it. But hopefully you won't have to do this. But if I did forget to fix it, you could just set that right rear door side trim needs a value of -1 in the scale X value, and then freeze it, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna close this back. So right rear door. Okay, I'm gonna take this right rear hinge joint, and I'm just going to come up here, and again it should still be the same options from last time. I'm going to do a bind skin, so then left rear door, select that whole group, and then select that rear hinge joint on the left and do a skin bind skin. Okay, and let's do the same for the front door. So right front door and right front hinge. I'm going to hit G and it should skin. Just repeat the last command. Then the left front door, left front hinge, G. Okay, so again, I'm going to select all four of these hinge joints, and if I rotate them, you see my doors should now open and close just the way that I want them to. Okay, so there we go. Okay, that just makes it easy for the animator to open and close the doors, where they could just select all four doors if they want to and open them all at once, or just do a single door at a time. Okay, so problem is, of course, that we could also go inward, which definitely you don't want to do. So we could put a limit on the rotation of the doors. Um, but we'll do that in the controls. Remember, the animator is not going to animate the joints. They're going to animate controls. So we need to create controls. So uh, let's go ahead and make some controls. I use a specific type of control here. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you, but I'll show you the way that I do it. So I'm going to make a curve ball here. So I'm going to get a curved circle, that one there. And just to get it out from under the car, I'm just going to hit W, hold down X. And I'm just going to use that to snap it to one of these grid points. Okay, I'm going to duplicate it, Control D. I'm going to rotate, hold down J, and just rotate this 90 degrees this way. Okay, hold down Control D, hold down J again, and this time in the Z axis, rotate 90 degrees this way. So it's basically a sphere of curves. And I need to select all these and just modify and freeze transformations on them. And again, right click on here, go to shapes. I need to combine them into a single control. So we can open up the two shape nodes for the lower ones like that, and then the transform node of the top one, and click in here, press up again, and that command should still be in there, and then hit enter. And now we can get rid of these two transform nodes here, and now this is a single control. And I'm going to scale it down just a bit here, maybe something like that. And now I'm going to get an EP curve tool, and I'm going to hold down X again. I'm going to click in the center and maybe click over here. It's just a straight line that I need. And I'm going to go, if you right click, go to control vertex. You can take that point. I'm just going to move it to right about where it would meet the edge of that sphere. So it's just like a lollipop control. Okay, and again, I need to now parent the shape node of this straight line into this one here. So select the shape node and select the transform node, clicking here, press up, or just type in parent space dash R space dash S and hit enter. And again, I messed up because I forgot to freeze this guy here. Or was it this guy? Yeah, I scaled this, so I need to freeze this. So let's go to modify, freeze transformations. Okay, so that's something that you got to just remember to do. And if you don't, you'll know immediately, just like I did. So select the shape node here, transform node here, and go to here we go. Click in there, press up, hit enter, and now this is a single control right here. And then let's move our pivot point to the edge of the old lollipop here, so of the stick. So just hold down D and X, and you can snap that there. So now that control will rotate from there. Okay, so that's our door control. Again, that's just my style of control. Don't feel like you have to make it like that. But now I can duplicate this and take this duplicate, and I'm going to flip it about 180 in Y because I had it drawn backward here. And I'm going to hide my polygons because I want to snap this control to that joint, and if polygons are there, it makes it harder. So get my move tool, hold down V, and snap that to the door joint. Okay, then I'm going to bring back my polygons, and I'm going to scale this guy down because it's a little too big. So scale it down, maybe about there, whatever. Okay, and what I want to do is just bring it out a little bit so it's just easier to grab. Maybe scale it down just a hair more right there. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so now that it's there, I can duplicate it, and don't freeze transformations on it yet. So let's duplicate, Control D, hold down V, and snap to this joint. Again, my polygons are there, so we're going to make sure that it's not snapping to the polygons. So we're going to just hide our polygons here and snap, hold down V and snap that there. And let's bring back our polygons just to see where we are. So that's the rear door one, and this one you could even bring it out a little bit more. Just again, it's just to make it easy to grab. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so then we need to mirror them over. So what we could do is just select both of these, group them, And the reason we group them is because by default, groups always have their pivot at the origin, so it's at the center of the car, which is what we want. Then that group, Control D to duplicate it, and then set the scale X value of the duplicate to -1, and it'll duplicate the controls over to the other side. Then we can select all these controls and Shift P to bring them out of the groups and delete the groups. Okay, so that's what we need to do there. So we need to put these controls in buffer groups here individually. So what we can do is, so we can name these. So let's go ahead and just go and name these guys here. So let's see here. Okay, so this one here is the left door control. Oh, sorry, left front door control. Let's, oops. Left front door control. And we might as well just copy this name and plug it into this control here. And then just switch that to right front door control. And this is our right rear door control. And I'm just going to copy all of this and plug it in here to this control. So L on, actually I can just put an L. There we go. So now we've named them, and we need buffer groups for each one of these. So let's go ahead and from this point I'm just going to hide my polygons just to get them out of the way here. So deselect everything, just click outside, hit Control G. It's going to make a null group. Okay, so I'm just going to double click this to copy the name. And actually, before we do that, let's duplicate this 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Control D 3 times. So copy this name here, plug it in here, and buffer. Double click this guy, plug it in here, put an underscore buffer. Oh, I like to use caps. Copy this one, paste it, and if you do a space, my will automatically switch it to a underscore. So there we go. Then finally this guy here, plug it in there and type buffer on the end there. Okay, so now we need to place each buffer at the correct position. So this is the right front door control buffer. So get my move tool, hold down V, snap it to the right front door, right rear door, snap it there, left rear door, snap it there, left front door, snap it there. Okay, so make sure that they are snapped to the correct position. Okay, so this is the left side, it's the right side. And then we need to orient these buffers to these joints. Okay, so this is my left front hinge joint. I'm going to select it first, control click the left front door control buffer, and do a constrain orient. Go in the options just to reset the settings, make sure we're at the default. Hit add, so you can see that that flipped around like it should. Okay, let's do the same. Left rear hinge joint, left rear door control. I'm just going to hit G. It's going to repeat the last command. And right rear, hit G. Right front, hit G. Okay, so that should now, those groups should now be aligned the way that we want. So we need to align them to the joints so that we can control the joints better. So if we open up all of these, you can see that we have constraints. Go in, select all those constraints, and just delete the constraints. But do not freeze transformations on these buffers, because these junk values here are fine. And the reason we do that is so that the controls themselves don't get those junk values. Okay, so now that we have that, we can take each control and just middle mouse drag it into the buffer. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to turn off shapes, so right click and uncheck shapes, so we're not looking at the shape nodes here. Right rear, left rear, left front, Just middle mouse dragging each one into its group. Okay. And then what I can do is select all the controls, not the buffers, but the controls themselves, And if I freeze their transformations, they will align with their parent buffers. Okay, so now the controls are perfectly aligned to those joints because their parents, the buffers, are aligned to those joints. Okay, so there we go on that. And that's what we needed to do to get these controls nicely lined up. You can see as I select the control, it is aligned to the joint. Don't worry that this axis is not aligned to the control. We need it to be aligned to the joint, not to the control. Okay, so there we go. That's looking the way that we want. So we need to get all these controls to be able to move with the car. So we need to constrain all 4 of these buffer groups to our rear suspension joint. So all we got to do there, very easy, select our rear suspension joint, then select the first buffer, then do a constrain. And what we want is to, let's see here, is to parent constrain it. So go into parent, just reset, and hit add. So this is now parent constrained to the rear suspension. So let's take the rear suspension and the next one, hit G, rear, next one, hit G, rear suspension joint, and this one, and hit G. So now if we move our joints here, you'll see that the controls are now going with it because the parents are constrained to that rear suspension joint. All the children should then move along with that as well. Okay, so then we need to constrain each of these joints. Right now, if I rotate my control, nothing happens. We need it to be able to rotate this joint. So very simple. Select the controls and then shift select the joint. Go to constrain, and again, making sure that in the orient constraint options that were reset, hit add. So now when I rotate this control, the joint goes with it. So select this, hit G. And let's do this side. Select the control, select the joint, hit G, control, joint, G. Okay, so to test this, if we take all these controls and rotate, you can see now they rotate the joints. If we bring back our polygons and rotate our controls, we should now be opening and closing the doors. Okay, so that is working as we need it to work. And because now we've constrained all the buffers to the rear suspension joint, as I move this up and down, notice that my doors are now moving with it. So even if I leave it raised up like that and select my controls, my door controls, and rotate them, see that now opens and closes the doors. So the doors are now moving along with the car like we need them to. Okay, they weren't before, now they are. Okay, now those limits on the doors. So I'm going to select this control here, go in the attribute editor, or Control A is the shortcut. This time we don't want to put limits on translates, we want to put limits on rotates. So obviously, well, let's see what we want our maximum door value to be. Obviously doors don't open this far, so you decide how far you want that door to open, maybe, and then just give it a little bit extra again, just to give it. It's better to give it too much than not enough. So maybe say there, which is almost, let's call this minus 85. Okay, so I'm going to set, actually before I do that, let's go minus 85. Okay, you can click this arrow, it's going to plug that minus 85 in here, then you can turn on that limit. And then over here, I want my maximum limit to be 0 because I don't want this door to go beyond that point. So between 0 and minus 85 is the limit there. So let's do the same for this control. Again, we want between 0 and minus 85. So let's plug in a minus 85 here, slide that over, and I want to put a 0 limit on this side, and that should do it there. So the front doors go from minus 85 to 0. The rear doors, let's go ahead and test that. How far do we want this rear door to open? Let's go to about minus 80 on the rear. That should be enough, I think. And punch that over there, turn on the limit, turn on this limit, and put a 0 in there. Oops. Okay, so from minus 80 to 0. On this one, same deal here. I'm just going to activate these and put a 0 here and a minus 80 here. And then we can, there we go. Okay. If you wanted to make it the same as the front doors, then you can make this a minus 85. And that's fine too, just to so that the front doors and the rear doors have the same range. Doesn't have to be, but if you want to do that, we can go ahead and do that. So now we can select all these guys here, and we can open, and they'll stop at their limits. So now I can no longer push the doors into the car because we set that limit there. Okay, so very useful. The limits that you can set there is very useful. And now we can lock and hide attributes on these controls. So make sure you got all 4 controls selected. And these just rotate on the y-axis, so we don't need anything else. So we can lock and hide selected. Okay, you always want to make sure you don't give the animator more than they need as far as attributes. Okay, and then for these buffers here, you can simply just lock and hide everything. Okay, so you can do that. And if you're going to do the trunk and the hood, basically the same setup for the doors you could do for the trunk and the hood. But for this car, there's nothing under there in the front or the back, so I'm not going to set up the opening and closing of the hood. So let's go in the top view here. Let's do our move control. This is the control that we can use to actually move the car. So again, I'm going to select my EP curve tool here. And what I want to do is, with grid snapping turned on, hold down X. I'm going to maybe start here, and I'm just going to make a nice big arrow here. Something like this. And then hit enter. So something like that. You can maybe make this a little sharper, and then bring this back here, something like this. And then we could also maybe just move this, hold down X, move this out a little bit if, I don't know. That might be too much. You get the idea. It's an arrow, you know. That should be good. You can make it, again, whatever shape you want. I just like to have my controls be descriptive. Now, clearly I've done it backward here because I wasn't paying attention. No big deal. I'm just going to put a 180 in the y-axis. And here, let me turn this on. So let's move this back a little bit. There we go. There we go. Now that's looking like something better. And then I can freeze. Well, I can freeze transformations. And I'm just going to name this move control. Okay. This is the control that we're going to be able to move the car back and forward. And I'm going to move this. I don't want it to be on the ground here. I want it to be, because the reason is, if you've got some kind of so if we had like a plane for the ground here, it can sometimes be difficult to select the plane if it's in the middle of like ground geometry. So I like to, take my plane and just move it up a certain amount. Doesn't really matter, where. If you want it to be lined up with, say, those joints there, you could do that. So hold down V and snap it, but you don't have to do this. Okay, I just want it off the ground so it'll be easier to pick up. So that's the drive control. So if you're keying the car moving forward, this is the control that you would be keying. So let's go ahead and freeze transformations again on it. So this, I'm going to go ahead and hide my polygons again. So here's my rear suspension. I'm going to take my move control, hold down D and V and snap its pivot to the rear suspension joint. Okay, so now it's there, but I need it to be on the ground. Okay, so I want it to be in line with the rear suspension joint, but I need it to be on the ground because this, when we make a curve to have the car follow, that curve is going to be on the ground, and this car is going to be constrained to that curve. if this pivot point is up here, it's going to sink the car down in the ground when it attaches to the curve. So I need this pivot point to be on the ground but in line with this. So hold down D and X and just take this, and if it's easier to do it in the side view or the front view, you can see now that that pivot point is on the ground plane. That's all we need. So snap it to the rear suspension first, and then hold down D and X and go down in Y. Don't go forward or backward or side to side, just straight down from there, and that'll work. And the reason is, when the car turns, it turns from this pivot point back here in line with this rear suspension joint. Oops. Oh, things got messed up. Okay, so we need, so I'm just going to move this back. Okay, this is where it turns from. It sort of pivots around that rear axle when you're turning the car. Okay, so that's why we need this pivot point to be back here in line with this, but it needs to be on the ground so that we can constrain it to the curve that is also going to be on the ground, and the car will stay where it is. Okay, so now we can start doing some parenting here. We have our 3 controls right here. We want to parent these under the move control. So you can just select all 3 of them, then middle mouse drag them under our move control. So the move control now has all of these controls underneath it. And we're going to do the same thing with the main body joint. So the main body joint, just middle mouse drag that under the move control. So there it is there. So now when we take the move control, you can see that it moves the entire car. And if I actually show the car, it's going to move the car. Now the wheels we haven't messed with, so that's why they're staying behind. And this little axle here, we haven't really messed with either. So that we can simply, or this whatever drive shaft, I don't know a lot of car stuff. We could actually just parent this to the rear suspension joint. We can skin it to the rear suspension joint. So select your little drive shaft here, and go find the rear suspension joint. There it is. So control click rear suspension joint, and then skin, bind skin. So now that will now go with the car. Okay. And if you move this up and down, I mean, there you go. So it's all connected now. The wheels we're going to do later, so leave those as they are. Okay, so now the move control will just take the whole car. You can see I can rotate it. I can do whatever I want. I can scale it, and everything scales up and down as expected. Okay, so there we go, and let's zero out the rotation there. So get it back to the default. Okay, so we don't need to scale from this control, so I'm just going to lock and hide the scales. So scales, go ahead and lock and hide those. We need to be able to translate and rotate, but not scale. We scale from the master control, which we haven't made yet. So that is why we're going to lock those. Okay, so that is coming along nicely. Next thing we got to do is sort of create the rig structure for the entire rig here. So let's go ahead and make a master control for the rig. So the master control, I just like to use a curved box. So I got to make one here real quick. So poly modeling, I'm going to make a cube, just a standard 1 by 1 by 1 cube. I'm going to move it forward just to get it out, away from the car here. So just hold down X. I'm going to grid snap it here. So that's a cube. I'm going to go to curves, get my EP curve tool right here. Then I'm going to hold down V, and I'm going to snap to the corners of this cube until I have all of them covered. And you can see the curve on the parts that I've gone over. And don't worry if you get over, if you have to overlap sections that you've done before. That's fine. Just keep going until you have covered all sides of the curve. And you'll know that when you have a blue line over the whole curve. Okay, I think I have them all. When you're done, hit enter. Select the polygon cube and delete it, and that should leave behind your curved cube. Then go to modify the center pivot. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this, and what I'm going to do here is scale this and also move it up so that it's sitting on that bottom, on the grid, on the grid there. Maybe You can even scale this down if it's too thick. And then also in this view here, we want something like that. So it's just a box that just covers the car more or less on the bottom here. And if you want to be exact with that bottom edge of this box, you can right click, go to control vertex, drag your selection, hold down X and snap it so that it snaps there. And maybe this is too tall, so I could just take this and make it a little bit shorter. Okay, so that is what I'm going to call my master control. So master CTRL for master control. I'm going to modify, I'm going to freeze transformations. Okay, that's an important step. Don't forget to do that. And then we're going to take our move control, which is this guy right here, and middle mouse drag it and make it a child of the master control. Okay, so this is what that hierarchy is looking like so far. Master control at the top. Okay, so master control and move control right now do kind of do the same thing. But the master control is just there to get the car to its starting position, and then you would animate the actual car moving with the move control. So it will drive away from its master control, and that's fine. Okay, so now we need to continue making some of this rig hierarchy here. So just click to deselect everything, click outside of anything, Control G, and that'll make an empty group here. And Control D to duplicate it again. How many do we need here? Anyway, if we need more, we'll make more. So the first one is controls. The second one is geometry. Okay. And this third one here, this car is a Chevy Fleetline. So this is going to be the group that covers the entire car. The whole car is going to be inside of this group. So let me turn my caps lock off. I'm going to just call this Chevy Fleetline. Okay, so that's the name of the car model. Okay, so this is going to be the top level group where if I collapse everything, it's going to collapse down to that Chevy Fleetline group. And that'll be all we need. So master control. Controls group needs to go under master control. So middle mouse drag that in there. So we have the move control and the controls. Our Chevy Fleetline group is going to hold the master control. So if we middle mouse drag the master control under Chevy Fleetline, and then middle mouse geometry under Chevy Fleetline. So master control and geometry are children of the Chevy Fleetline group. Okay. So then what we can do is, since we have all the geometry in here, we can just move this into the geometry group. Okay, so all that geometry is going to be here. The reason we don't have geometry under the master control is because we don't need the geometry to scale. Because if we did put it under there, it's going to double scale because it scales with the scaling joints. And then if you put it under the master control, it's going to scale again. So it's going to scale twice as much as anything else. Okay, so that goes into there. Then we want all these control buffers. So I'm just going to collapse these. I want to select all of those and put them under, actually, let's undo that. So I want to select all these and put them in the controls group. So those buffers go into controls. Okay, and then just check the car to make sure that nothing broke. Sometimes things will break if you're not careful. Nothing's moved. Everything should still be working. Our suspension is working. The body roll is working. Everything still looks like it's all good. Okay. And then the master control is where we want to be able to scale the car. You can see it scales fine, minus the wheels, because we haven't messed with those yet. But we don't want to be able to scale non-uniformly. All right, so obviously the master control shouldn't do that. It should always scale on all three axes the same. So scale XYZ should always be the same value. So the easy way to make sure that always happens is, again, let's go to Windows, Node Editor. And with the master control selected, just hit the plus to load it up. Then open up your scales. Then what I'm going to do is take my scale Y, plug it into scale Z, do the same thing, plug it into scale X. So basically, it's just the scale Y value is being plugged into the scale X and scale Z values, and you'll see that these are connected now. So now I can't manually scale it on X and Z. So anything I do to Y is going to happen to X and Z, as you can see. So that's the way that I like to do that. Then you can select both these values, right click on them, and lock and hide selected. So now we only have a scale Y value. So if you want to scale the car, you got to do it in Y, and that'll work just fine. Okay, so pretty straightforward there. Okay, so Chevy Fleet Line, we don't need anyone to be able to mess around scaling this, because as you can see, things don't scale correctly. Look at the joints all over the place. So we don't want that. We want to prevent all scaling. So, and translating. We're not moving or rotating or scaling this group. So we're going to lock and hide everything except the visibility, because I leave the visibility there because I could just turn that off and hide the entire car. Okay, so I want to leave visibility on there. Same thing for controls. So the controls group, I'm going to lock and hide everything but visibility. And the same on the geometry group, lock and hide everything but visibility. Okay, so that way, controls group, if I turn this off, it's going to, once we get everything set up here, it's going to hide all the controls. Now it did all the door stuff, but it did not do these, and we'll fix that here in a minute. Okay, so those controls get hidden by that, and then the geometry, of course, I can just select the geometry group and hide just the geometry. So that's why we are doing that. Okay, so there we go. So next what we're going to do is the wheels. Okay, I'm going to save my file here, and let's do the wheels.